All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I wanted to welcome everyone to today's session. Um, we will be talking about the broadcast manager and how you could set up business reports and alerts. My name's Adam Kurtz, and I'll be stepping you through today's session. Like I said, the broadcast manager, we'll take a look at what that's capable of. It's basically a way to distribute reports from Stratum, and you can also set up alerts. We'll look at some examples of that. We'll take a look at the components of how to put this together, and then we'll step through a quick demo. Any questions you could either reserve for after the meeting. You could feel free to chat during the meeting if you'd like, or just feel free to speak up. It's pretty informal here, so feel free to speak up. We know what the data hub is by now. We've got this way of getting data in and out of Stratum. Today we'll be concentrating on the access hub, specifically email distribution, which is part of what we call the broadcast manager. So basically a way to get data out of the Stratum data hub and into the user's hands. And you can do that on a frequent basis. Set up daily, weekly reports, monthly reports. You could also set up alerts as well. So if a condition gets met within the data, you can alert your users as needed. So basically, what is Broadcast Manager? It's essentially a function or a capability, if you will, extension of Stratum Viewer, the web interface, and that provides the ability to deliver Stratum data to your user community, and you could schedule it. You can schedule it on a frequent basis. You can leverage your existing views and reports today that you have, and you can leverage all the users, of course, and their role security, meaning that you can have one report you can send to all your users if you want to, if you so choose, and it will filter out the measures or hide whatever it needs to hide for each user. And so you can rely on the Stratum security so that users don't see sensitive data from those reports. And that way you don't have to set up individual reports for different groups of users, which would be nightmarish. So in this case, you can just rely on basically the capability of Stratum's security role to do that filtering for you. And it's flexible. You can schedule it however you'd like, daily, weekly, hourly, monthly, and you can even set up schedules so that users can actually assign actions to those schedules within the interface. So what are the different components for the broadcast manager? How do we set some of this stuff up within Stratum Viewer? Well, you have these things called actions. So that's at the very low level, you have an action, and that will define the what, the who, the when, and the how. So basically, what these users will get, who gets it, when they get it, and will they get it through email, or you can also send these reports to file shares within your network, areas on the cloud, so that they can just download them from their cloud spot as needed. So you set all that up within the action, the Stratum action. And then that also is assigned to a view or multiple views. So an action can have one report slash view in it, or up, how many you need to put in that action. 10 reports, 5 reports. You will decide how many reports you want to assign to the action. And that way the user will get then one report. And you can separate the reports or you can chunk them together into one Excel spreadsheet. So you actually have the flexibility to kind of send individual reports within one email or group it up into one Excel spreadsheet where each report is a worksheet within that workbook of Excel. Very flexible, very flexible. Um, you also have the way, so basically that's your action. And then you also have a way to group those actions together. And those are simply called groups, broadcast manager groups. We also have the schedules that are available too. So you'll set those up as needed and save those within the interface. And that's a way to organize your actions. Say you might have a group of actions that you're sending out sales reports to your sales guys and gals. Well, you'll set that up, and it would be advantageous for you to group that together into a broadcast manager group called sales reports. Um, or if you want to get more specific, you can do weekly sales reports. Then you might have another group called monthly sales reports, and you can just basically create your own organization of how you would uh, organize all the different actions that you would set up. Okay. So then you have, when the users get their report, they'll get that within the email, and they can have the report will come as an Excel attachment. So it will only contain, like I said, the filtered data that they're allowed to see. And you can set up to send the email only when data exists. And that's important for alerting because you might have a filter on the view to only show data for certain situations. So, and then if the view doesn't yield any data from the filter, then the email doesn't get sent. And that's really the magic of setting up an alert. You'll need to set up, for instance, you might have a tolerance level for inventory on hand supply, weeks of supply. If weeks of supply gets any larger or less than 1 to 3 weeks, then you could set up an alert that would send to your planners of all the items that meet that criteria, so that they'll notice, basically start ordering. Or you can send it out to your plants. They need to start manufacturing more. Whatever you need to do to fill that gap there, or to get more product in, so that the weeks of supply will increase. Well, you can. It all starts with the alert, so that it's all the devil's in the detail of the data, and without, so you don't have to rely on the analyst to go out and look for this. You can actually have the product look for it, and then alert the user, the analyst, when those cases arise. They know what's going on, as opposed to them finding it manually. So this is good. This is very important. It's basically a futuristic way of looking for anomalies within your data. Have the product, how the views work for you, as opposed to the users going in and trying to find these anomalies with their naked eye. So we have different types of examples of alerts, but the sky's the limit, just so you know. I mean, as long as you have the data to build out the alert, or as long as you have the data that you want to send to the user, well, then of course the sky's the limit. But again, these are different types of examples of alerts that you could set up, like percent of returns over a certain threshold. Maybe there's returns as a percent of sales. Maybe there's a threshold that you'll set up for that. So if an item gets returned 25% of its sales number, then you might have a problem. You might have a QA issue. I already mentioned inventory levels. If they get below safety stock or below a certain weeks of supply number, then you'll be notified. Your planner, you'll set that up to send that out to your planners, and they can do something about it. Be proactive. And the list goes on. Month to date expenses exceeding budget, products exceeding their forecasts, missing product attributes. That's another great one where you might have run this over all your items to see if there's data within the appropriate attribute fields. Here's one that actually saved money for a certain client, a large order quantity, so that they were aware of a hit on demand, and they could be more prepared about it, so that they're not surprised and not able to meet the demand of the order. So again, this is just a drop in the bucket in terms of what you can do, as long as you have the data to support it. And of course, getting data into Stratum is not that hard to do. So again, proactive notifications of business data situations. These are different types of things that you could set up. Average returns over the last 3 months above normal. Projected SKU inventory balances below demand. Again, more ideas on alerts. Sales below budget based on percentage of year to date, monthly, a certain time frame. Again, all kinds of different options are available. Exception management, again, this kind of supports that idea of managing to the exception as opposed to looking for it. You're going to be highlighted, a much more efficient way to do business and to look for anomalies. Okay, and so views. So it starts basically. I guess you can go all the way back to the view. It starts with the actual view. Which view do you want to use? Do you need to build a new view to support this action? And then you'd be able to define the action and get that scheduled on the required frequency. So again, the different components, the view itself, with that filter that defines the criteria, the exception. You have the action, which will actually execute the view when needed, as frequently as scheduled. It will then send the alert to the recipients only when data is present. If the view doesn't yield any data, there's no email sent. Pretty slick. And then have that add, you can then add that to your broadcast manager. You can schedule it as needed, put it into a specific group as needed. So you have a way to organize your actions. And there's also this component called the trigger load where orders and inventory happen intraday. If you weren't aware of that, we have several customers that update their orders and their inventory throughout the day. And that way it really kind of gives this more, the alerts a little bit more credence. You might set up an alert on a daily basis or you might set up alert on after the trickle load happens so that then the alert then is processed on fresh data and actionable, transaction data. So want to talk more about these concepts, you can contact me. My name's Adam Kurtz. That's my email and that's my phone number. Feel free to reach out and we could talk more about how you can take advantage of this powerful tool. Let's take a look at the demo. So we've got, first and foremost, I guess I could show you what I get every day. And those are my alerts. So I get, actually, they're basically just sales reports. And I get this every day. I've developed a folder within my Outlook email, and they just get dumped into there. There's all my reports. They all came at 1 o'clock in the morning, as you can see. So if I wanted to see my report for comparative sales, I can then go in and that's my email, and I can just open up the report that has been sent to me. That then gets opened up into Excel, and that's it. That's my data that is sent to me. So um, pretty raw. It doesn't have to look this raw, but you can send raw data as needed. You can also send out formatted data. So I guess it really depends on what the user's going to do with the data. Maybe they're using it to build pivot tables within Excel. So maybe your users are a bit more advanced and they just want raw data, and they don't care for fancy row colors and wonderful looking conditional formats. They just want the raw data. So this would be an example of how you can send that out on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, however you see fit. Going back to my report. So you'll get a report for so that's comparative sales. Here's another one for comparative sales report. And I think that's just, no. So this is a good example of getting a report that's formatted. So here I can see the report has been sent to me by brand. I can see comparative sales for different chunks of time here. Here's my year-to-date numbers over here. So basically year-to-date numbers look great. Looks like I'm lagging a little bit in the sugar drop area, but other than that, fantastic growth, 24%, right? You also get a view detail tab within the Excel report. So if I click on the view detail tab, I get a link back to the view. So if I want to run the view and go to Stratum, I can just click on the link. But it also gives me, when the actual file was created, rows and column counts, and then any filter criteria, which we don't have any basically, but those would be specified here if there were any filters going on with the data. And that's good to know because, if you're looking at the data and it's filtered by a specific company or division, you wouldn't know that unless you came here and looked at the filters. Okay. If I click on the link, it's going to send me over to the view. It then runs the view in place, and now I'm live within Stratum. And I can do my drill downs as needed. I can start interacting with the data at this point because now the email has sent me over to Stratum. And then another good example would be to send a packet of reports. So here's a daily sales package where I am getting multiple reports in one Excel spreadsheet, and they just show up as different tabs within the Excel spreadsheet. That way, the user is not getting inundated with like 3 different attachments. God forbid, any more than 15 or whatever. This way you can consolidate all the views into one Excel spreadsheet. Right. So, and that's all set up as part of the action. Right. So let's take a look at the actions within the interface. We can see how some of this got set up. So going back to Stratum, if I go to my menu here in the upper right hand corner, I can go to my analyst tools, and that's where all the different broadcast manager components reside. Here I can see I can gain access to the actions, the broadcast groups, and then finally the broadcast schedules that are available to me. So let's go into the actions first. And again, these are the different actions that we have set up within our demo. And some of these are alerts, others are just reports. Like for instance, the daily sales package is what we just saw here. And I probably use this one here, I imagine. And we can see that these actions can be personal or global. So you can have users out there setting up their own actions if you want them to, and they can then assign that action to a group and schedule. Here, if I just go into the action, I can double click on it and it will show me that this action, the name of it, you can describe it. It's either global or personal, kind of like a view. So if this is something that you want to share with other users, you can make it global and they can gain access to your action as well. Uh, who do I want to process this for? Well, it's only processed for me, but if I want to add other users and add them into the mix, I can then look for certain users and then add them over to the recipient. I guess you can't double click on it. So if I highlight it and then click on the to button, it will then send them over there to the recipient list as well. So we'll send one out to Frank. He's probably out there sailing in retirement right now. And we'll bother him with an email. No, I'm kidding. I won't send this, but that's how you set this up and set it up to so that you can send it out to your users within your Stratum application. The distribution method is going to be set up as such so that it's either an email or it's a file that you'll send to a file share. If it's just an email, then you'll need to tell it what kind of its attachment type, and normally you're going to say Excel here. We do have this other option called include as text. It's basically just going to send us like a picture of the view as opposed to the Excel file. So I do recommend using the Excel file option here. And here's that single option, that single file option. So if you say yes to this, if you have multiple views within your action, they'll stay in one single Excel report. Um, which gives us to the Excel report option where we can see that I can use the report formatted report, or I can just send the raw data. And when you send the raw data, it's a lot quicker in terms of performance. So if you're sending a lot of rows of data, like thousands of rows, if it's a much larger file, you're better off using Excel data because it's going to be the raw data without all the different formatting options, which can slow things down in terms of exporting that stuff into Excel. So again, lots of data, use Excel data. If you want them to look pretty and keep the format, you'll use the Excel report. You also have the view itself has a default or you could set it up at the view level and you could tell it just to use the view's definition of what its export type should be. All right. Now, so that's your email, and then the email, like you can set up what the email is going to say, what the subject and the body is going to say. Do you want to include a link back to the view? Do you want to send the email when no data exists? So these are things where, for instance, this send email when no data exists would be something that you would set up for an alert. Then you would probably say no to that because at that point you don't want to send the email if there is no data for the alert. But this isn't an alert. This is a daily sales package that I'm sending to my users. So I'm sending this. I know there will be data. So that question's almost moot at this point. So, but if no data does exist and you do send it, um, it'll actually have that little prefix to it as well when no data exists so that the users know. Okay. Down here are the different views that are tied to the action. So these are the different reports that are being sent. If I want to add, if I want to manage this, I can get rid of certain things. I can by clicking on the X, I can remove that report from that action. I can add to them. If I click on the plus sign, I can look for a specific view and add that to the action as needed. I can reorder things if I wanted to, and that will reorder them in the Excel spreadsheet that they'll end up being exported to. Here's the group that it belongs to. It's called Daily Flash Reports. And so we have visibility into that as well. And of course, we can manage that here as well. If we wanted to change it or add it to another group, we can certainly do that as well. Here we can see when it was created, all the way back in good old 2020. And last time it was updated, looks like it was in 2021. And I've processed this thing. As you can see, it gets processed on a daily basis. So that got kicked off at 1 o'clock and it took about 4 seconds to run. So not bad. Now, if you add more users, and yeah, of course, it's going to take longer, but this chunked out pretty quickly. So that's your actions. Here we can see an alert, a QA alert. Let's take a look at that and see how this one got set up. So here we can see the QA alert. It's global. We're sending it out to me. It's an email. It's an Excel file. Yeah, we're keeping it into a single file. I think there's only one report anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Um, and then down below, we can see that we're using a view called product quality alert or production quality alert. And we'll take a look at that in a second. It doesn't seem to be scheduled. So, again, this is something that is run manually. But if it was into a group, then we can get it scheduled. I could add it to a group and get that added to my daily flash reports if I want to. So now there's a group there. I can actually save that. So that'll actually run on a daily basis. That's how easy that is. So this wasn't scheduled. Now it basically is because I know that that group is, as you can see, it's tied to a broadcast schedule. We can have visibility into that right here. So, and then send email when no data exists. We should say no to that actually, because that would make it that's the magic sauce for the alert. I guess the magic sauce for the alert would be the view itself and then turning that to no so that if the filter returns no rows, then we're not going to bother the planners. Okay, so I'm going to save that. All right, now let's take and I'm going to exit that. Let's take a look at that view um, that's tied to that action. So if we look at the production quality alert, here I ran the wrong one. Gosh, I hate when I do that. Here's the one I'm using for the alert. Okay, so here's what the view looks like. It's by plant and product. And we can see we've got 2 plants in the mix. We've got some products that met the criteria. We've got production amount produced, amount that was produced in terms of the costs, the units, the how much was produced that was good, and then here's our quality rate because we know what was good and what wasn't. And so, if it's not good, then we've got issues. So here I can see we have a filter. And so we're filtering everything greater than anything greater than 95%, um, or less than, sorry. If it was greater than 95%, we'd be in great shape. Anything less than 95% is going to show up here, right? So here we can see that indeed, that is the case. If I sort this in ascending fashion, yeah, things get really ugly down on the bottom. And then at the top, we have 94.9. So the filter seems to be working appropriately. And we can see that I've got it roughly around probably around 27, 25. That includes the subtotal and the grand total. So, but I've got, a fair amount of items here that might have quality issues based on my threshold. Now, again, I don't know what's really acceptable in terms of Six Sigma and what these thresholds should be, but in my demo world, this is a problem. And so it's not meeting my 95% standard. And so I want to send this out to my planners on a scheduled basis. So um, I can actually get to the alert here if I actually go in and right click on the view. I can go to the actions and I can display the actions that include this view. And indeed, there's the alert we just looked at. Okay. So if I were to run the alert just manually, I can go back into my analyst tools and I can um, go into my broadcast schedules because that's really the top level of this group of reports, and I can run it manually. So if I go in and I click on the process, I get warned it might take some time, shouldn't take too long, and then I'm going to go ahead and kick that off. So I'm actually manually processing this alert along with the other daily reports because remember, I added this into the schedule. So um, this should run my typical daily reports, and it also should run that QA report as well. So that should be part of the. I'm hoping that should be part of the packet. All right. So that seems to be processed, and I'll just close this out for now. These are all my different reports that I have, and then I go to my alerts, and so here we have the all the different alerts that came out, and it's already done, and we could see that the production quality alert is there. So I've got a new email for my production quality alert, and there it is. So I'm now getting alerted to some items. I open up my alert, and there they are. Those are the items we just looked at within Stratum, and we can now get alerted to this on a daily basis or weekly, monthly, however you see fit. But now I'm getting sent. And again, if everything now, if I get a hold of my quality issue and everything is now greater than 95%, the view will yield nothing, and then the email won't get sent, and I won't get alerted. So that's really the magic sauce of using Broadcast Manager and the underlying components of Stratum, the view, the action, being able to group them and organize them and schedule them. That all is basically part of the Broadcast Manager. And you can, again, gain access to that through your menu, through analyst tools. And you can get into the components of the action, the broadcast group, and the broadcast schedule, and you can start setting up your own alerts and your own report packages as well. This does require a license, so you may already be licensed for it, depending. So if you're not sure, you can contact me, and we can talk more about, with your you may, again, you might be licensed to it and you may not know it. And if you're licensed to it and you're not taking advantage of it, well, this is something that you could certainly start taking advantage